Hey y'all, what is going on? What is going on? It's your girl, Melba Pearson, Melba for Miami, Melba for Justice, also known as the resident legal diva. And it is time for another Mondays with Melba. Hope everyone had a great weekend. And we're going to dive into a really serious topic today. This month is today is it's October 30th, and it is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. As we all know, or maybe some of you are newer to the show may not know, this is a topic that's very close to my heart. I was a domestic violence prosecutor for many years at the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office. I am also a survivor of domestic violence. So this is something that I always want to try and honor and center every single year, not only in the month of October, which is designed to raise awareness, but all year round, because it's not like abusers take time off the rest of the year, right? So we just have to be very cognizant of what this looks like. And hopefully this discussion with my guest today, Dr. Shanda Roberts, will give you some insight into what resources are available, why we need to care about it, and what you can do to support someone, because the reality is we all know somebody impacted by domestic violence. Either they're directly involved in an abusive relationship right now, or they are a family member to someone who's dealing with it, or a friend. I mean, this can show up anywhere. It cuts across all racial lines, all faiths, all genders, all sexual identities and expressions. So don't think it just resides with one group of people and not with everyone. So just really important to have this discussion. So first off, Dr. Shanda Roberts, thank you so much for joining me on Mondays with Melba. Can you please share a bit about yourself and your amazing organization, Pain2Purpose?
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to get to talk with you about this topic. So I am Dr. Shanda Roberts. I received an honorary doctorate degree through in ministry with domestic violence, because this is definitely a ministry. I also I'm married to my wonderful husband. We've been married 21 years. If I get it right, he'll kill me. 21 years now. And we have a bunch of children. We have 2 together and the rest are blended. So we have 6 children in total. And then we also have 3 godchildren. So we have a lot going on. And 2 grandchildren. I'm sorry, I forgot about the grandbabies, the 2 grandbabies. So I started Pain2Purpose. Does that want me to go right now?
Yes, go for it.
Okay, I want to jump ahead. Okay. So I started Pain2Purpose and officially in 2015, but maybe a year or 2 prior to that, someone reached out to me and asked me if I would speak at Miami-Dade College during Women's History Month about domestic violence. And I was like, I don't think so. I don't want to share my story. This person knows my story. And someone else was looking for someone to speak. Dr. Simeon Richardson, and he's a professor at Miami-Dade. And so she was like, well, you should share your story. I'm like, I don't think so. I'm embarrassed about it. I want people to know what happened to me. I just didn't want anyone to know. But then I felt, you know what, maybe I should. Maybe it may help me in my healing process, and maybe it may help someone else. I just wasn't sure about it at the time. So nevertheless, I went. I cried the whole time. I got through the story, but I was bawling the whole time because it was just a fear that I had in telling strangers what had happened to me, without the fear of being judged or ridiculed or whatever. But when I finished telling that story, I had a couple of women come up to me after the event and just tell me that they were in an abusive relationship or had been, and my story was helping them to find a way out and to help stay out. So when I did that, I was so moved. I got out of my own feelings and was like, well, you know what? I'm glad I did it. I pat myself on the back and I felt so empowered after that. I got into the car and I called my husband. I told him what happened. And I just felt charged after that. So Christmas was coming up towards the end of the year, and I saw a lot of signs for an email for Toys for Tots. And I was like, what about the mothers that are in the show? Because as moms, we always want to make sure our kids are okay. As long as our kids are okay, we're okay. But I also wanted to say, you know what? Let's give mothers something so that, just to show that we care and we're there. You're not by yourself, and we're here to support you. So I got a couple of friends. We started collecting new and slightly used purses and we would stuff them with hygiene products. We would put lotions and body sprays and hairbrush and, sunglasses, whatever we could put in the bag, and a beautiful purse just to give them something. And also we would put gift cards in them and handwritten notes of encouragement in the purses as well. So yeah, so then we started going to the shelters and we would lay out some index cards and name the purses the same names on the index cards, like brave, leader, strong, warrior, those type of names. And the women will come in and we'll just instruct them to pick up an index card that they feel describes them. So they wouldn't know what's going on. They'll pick up the index card and I'll introduce myself, the team introduce themselves, and we'll basically say, why did you pick brave, Melba? Why did you pick brave? And then they will go ahead and share, well, I picked brave because such and such and such. And then they will get the purse that has that same name. So that was our way of distributing the purses, but also having like a group session and introducing ourselves to them and let them know, I know you're here, but this is not going to be the rest of your life. It's just temporary, but you have the strength to move on. You have the strength to fight, to keep going for you and for your children. So that kind of started with, it's called our Stuff a Purse initiative. So that kind of started with that. We're doing that every couple of months. And then I just said, let me do a nonprofit. And people were asking me to do a nonprofit. I was like, I don't think so. It sounds like a lot of work. I don't know, but little did I know. So I was like, it's a lot of work. I don't know. But I went ahead and did the nonprofit. I started having speaking engagements like all the time, sitting on panels and sharing my story. So it kind of helped me heal, you know what I mean? Because when I wasn't sharing my story, and I had been married probably like 15 years around that time or somewhere up in there. And because you move on, you think mentally that forgotten about what happened or you're healed from that. And I didn't realize how I was not healed until I started sharing my story, because everything I kept inside of me started coming out. I started having bad dreams. I started crying about it. But that helped me through that process of everything that I pushed to the back of my head thinking I was okay because I moved on in life. But I had not healed from that. But doing this has helped me to heal as well, which empowers even more. So now that when I do speak to women and young girls or even boys and teens, I've definitely advised therapy. It's something I did not do, not because I didn't want to, it wasn't popular back then to do therapy. So I encourage therapy now because it's so important to understand those feelings and those traumas and get help for them so that you're not putting your trauma and your pain on somebody else. Because just because you leave physically doesn't mean you leave mentally. And I brought that trauma into my new time. So fast forward, Pain2Purpose was created 2015, just to help survivors to know that they're not alone. We offer all type of resources that we can, and we just meet them where they are. And that's how Pain2Purpose started.
That's amazing. I mean, there's so many interesting things to dissect in what you're saying, but most notably, I think it's about that compartmentalization we engage in, especially as Black women, especially as people of color, because you don't have time for the trauma. You don't have time for the trauma. You got food to put on the table. Right. You have to feed. You can't stop and just be in your feelings. You feel that you can't do that. Right. So you just move forward, which means you're basically sweeping everything under the rug. But what happens? Eventually a mound forms in the rug and you trip over it, right? So you have to address that, pain, even though you think, oh, I'm not thinking about it, so therefore I must be over it. No, it's still lingering in your psyche and will come out. Your spouse says something and it triggers you, or you have a hard time forming new relationships because you can't trust, right? Like there's so much there.
So much. I mean, I also was a part of a group of women, 9 survivors. We wrote a book called Love After Abuse. And in that book, I talk about, I forgot to mention that to you. I'm sorry. I talk about.
Oh, you didn't know this. It's like breaking news to me.
Here it is.
Yes.
I completely forgot about it. I'm doing so much that I forgot. But as you say in that book, all of these survivors talk about love after abuse, but also what happened after the abuse. Because I came to this wonderful marriage, yes, but that man put up with some mess from me. Because I came in with all of this hurt and baggage and trauma. And I was, if he raised his voice, I was going off like, wait a minute, because I'm not going to be a victim anymore. You know what I mean? And so I had to he was the one that was there to catch all of that pain, and it was forced upon him. But he decided to stay, and he decided to help me through that. And I thank God for him every day, because I would have left me. And that was the title of my chapter in that book. I would have left me because I was something else, and that's just the truth.
Yeah. And I mean, again, it's all part of the healing process. And I think that's why that therapy component is so important, not only for survivors, but for the people that may be in a relationship with the survivor, because Lord knows, my beloved, the cowboy, has had to deal with some of the, remains of that, even though, again, years later, he was not the first person after the abusive relationship, but there were other things in between that I had never dealt with because, again, I had that underlying pain that kept manifesting itself in a different pair of pants, right? Or in a different person. And then finally you get to that, so one of the best lines I ever heard from, actually, she also is a domestic violence advocate. And she was also a pastor. And she said that when you go to the bank, right, the tellers are always studying real money. So they can tell a counterfeit from a mile away because they are always studying the real thing. Too often in relationships, we end up studying the counterfeit as opposed to what a real partner should look like. And so when the real thing comes along, you reject it because you think it's something, different or wrong or bad. But what you're too busy studying is what's toxic and unhealthy for you. So it just gave me a whole new perspective, like, oh, that's true. Because then you keep rejecting good people because, you think something's wrong with them, when in reality, your viewpoint of what a healthy relationship should look like is completely off. So how did you kind of unlearn that?
I tell my husband that he loved the hell out of me, the literal hell out of me, because before him, like you said, there were other relationships for me because it happened really fast, but I lost friendships. I left jobs, everything. Nobody was exempt from my anger and my rage because I was in a I wish you would type of mood for, that whole last couple of years of that abusive marriage. Even after the abusive marriage, anybody could get it because I had this wall up so high and so thick that even if you ask me how I was doing, I'm asking you why. Why you want to know? What you want to do? Because I was on the defense all of the time. And my husband I literally had to stop and realize, hey, when I thought I was going to lose him because of my actions, I had to really get myself together and say, okay, he's not your enemy. Your friends are not your enemy. You need to find out what's going on with you and work on that. And I just had to do some internal work. I could only tell you come from the grace of God that I had to find it in myself. Because like I said, I wish I had a therapist back then. It probably wouldn't have been so hard to do. But I do thank God for the wherewithal to know how to just dig deep, work on me. And that's simply trying to detox from that. You know what I mean? If I felt myself getting angry for nothing, I would check myself. Shanda, is this something you should be getting mad about? Calm down. This is not that serious. You're making something. I'm overthinking. I would try to check myself on overthinking. Just reevaluating my own decisions and my own actions so that I can correct those going forward. It took a while. It took a long time, but really, and I'm still a work in progress now. I'm not saying I'm perfect. As far as knowing how to love and how to receive love, I got that down pat. So,
I mean, but again, there's hope at the end of the journey, right? And engaging on that intentional self-work, while painful, while long, will get you to where you need to be. So there's hope. I think that's the key thing to remind. Yeah.
Yes.
So
definitely hope. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, and then I'll ask you another question.
But I was wanting to reiterate, there's definitely hope, and that was the reason for writing the book, Love After Abuse, because some people feel like they're never going to find love again because they're used to that toxicity. They're used to seeing that counterfeit, so that when you see something real, you kind of back away. Like this is too good to be true. Something has to be wrong, and that's how I was when I met my husband. I was like, he takes care of his kids. He goes to work. He's giving me money. What is wrong with him? You know what I mean? Something is wrong with this man. Because you're used to seeing the toxic part of it, and not for nothing, my abuser was a good provider, but his provider came with abuse. There was intent behind it. It wasn't out of general love and concern for me. It was, I'm doing this for you, so you better do this. And to see someone take care of me wholeheartedly without wanting anything in return was new for me. And to talk to me with respect and to love me with respect. And he could be talking in the softest tone, and I look at him like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you talking to me so nice? Because you get used to that toxic. So there is hope, there is love, but you have to do that internal self-work also in order to move forward. Definitely move forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about some of the successes that you've had at Pain2Purpose. What are you most proud of over the course of the almost 10-year journey that you've had with this organization?
10 years, my goodness. I didn't realize it's almost that long. You're right. Wow. So many. Where do I start? So I believe we've given out over 1,000 purses at this point. We have visited shelters all the way from Homestead to Broward. Broward has one women's domestic violence shelter that holds 60 women. So we've been from Homestead that holds 25 to Broward that holds 60, and all the ones in between. We've been to the in transition homes. We've given out purses there. We also have met several, hundreds, I should say, of survivors. A few that have stayed in touch and have told us how they moved on and how they've gotten their own place. And we're able to help with little things as far as if they needed help with furniture, if they needed help with clothing, if they just needed financial help. If we have the funds, we're able to do that. We have our Survivors Ball, which we highlight survivors who are sharing their stories for the first time. And the reason why I wanted survivors who are sharing their stories for the first time, because I know how I felt when I shared my story. It empowered and it charged me to do more. And that's my hope when these survivors share their story, to like, oh, I did it. I finally stood in front of a room of strangers and I shared my story, and I know I'm going to help somebody else. And I'm hoping when they leave that event that it also wants them to even start their own nonprofit or start their own work, do something else to further the work. And our ball is, it's not a sad occasion, but of course we talk about that. We always have a keynote speaker to talk about something else as far as moving forward or healing, or just talk about abuse in itself and the effects that it has on you mentally, physically, emotionally. We also have our Teen Summit, and our Teen Summit is our baby as well. It's our free event that we have every year. We used to have it in October, but now we have moved it to February for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. So we have that in February, and we get like 100 to 150 kids and parents, and it's a free event. My husband's a chef, so he cooks. And then we have giveaways. We have gift cards for our parents. We have a lot of we give away bikes and whatever we can, whatever we get sponsored, that's what we give away to our teens. But we talk about suicide, depression, bullying, self-esteem, and teen dating violence. We also have some bonus topics, which is financial literacy and entrepreneurship. And those topics are with our teens in separate rooms. They have breakout sessions away from the parents, so they're able to open up to share whatever they need to share. But after that, we also have clinicians there from CHI and other organizations or businesses there to set up appointments for therapy if needed. Because if we're talking about all of this and we're opening up these can of worms, we need to make sure that we have a can to catch it, just in case people need to talk further about what's going on, because our event is all day, but we need to make sure they're helped after that event. Now, how can we help you now that we've talked about this, now that we've admitted we've been abused? And we've had some young girls come out of the sessions crying because they were currently in abusive situations, and they were 15 years old. And when I tell parents, you all have to pay attention. I know it's hard because our kids are so secretive these days, especially with their phones and social media. They're very secretive with what they share. So parents, get in their business when it comes to their relationships, and just pay attention to how they interact with their boyfriend or their girlfriend, because boys and men can be victims as well. So that's what we speak about at our Teen Summit, just making sure our families and the community are aware of what's going on and how they can get help. We also have a hashtag exit plan workshop, where we talk about how to leave an abusive relationship. What do you need? What kind of support should you have? What do you need to take with you? If there's immigration issues, how can I with immigration? If I need restraining orders, how do I do that? So our hashtag workshop at hashtag exit plan workshop just talks about how to leave. Relationship, I literally hid in plain sight. And I kind of just took the
Mm.
tools that I used that time and I just put it in a workshop to try to help other victims, because everyone doesn't know that, how to leave or what's the first step. What do I do? Because if you're in a relationship where that person is the provider and they're taking care of you, that fear sticks in and you're like, what do I do if I leave? I have to take my kids to a shelter. Besides them having their own bed, some women feel like they'll take the abuse instead of putting their kids in a shelter. And I understand that sometimes the coming out of your comfort zone or your norm is scary as well. But we encourage them that it's your life is so much more important than the comfortability of a bed. Sometimes you have or a bed in your abusive home as opposed to a bed in the shelter. So we just try to and also encourage others on how to help someone else come out, because there may not be survivors and victims in the room, but there's families of survivors and victims that need to help a family member to how to get out their relationship. And then we also have I think that's it. I'm not sure. Hashtag exit plan, our teen summit, our survivors ball. And then also I'm always somewhere in schools, churches, organizations, speaking all the time. When I finish with this, I have other things. I have another one as well. So I'm always out speaking about this, not only in October, all year long. It's just more so I do it more often in October, but I'm doing this all year long because it's such an important topic, and it kind of gets swept under the rug because people don't want to talk about it, and it's a taboo subject in our community.
Exactly. And that's the sad thing, because again, you perish for a want of knowledge, right?
Yes.
So when you don't have that knowledge, the resources to be able to share, to be able to help somebody get out of a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
you have the potential of someone dying, right? Like this is a
Yes.
life and death situation. This isn't like
Yes.
playful, this is
Yes.
literally, you can help save a life if you
Yeah.
know where the resources are, what the signs are of an abusive relationship, because I can remember as a prosecutor talking to families who are just heartbroken and were like, man, I had the opportunity to pull him to the side, man, but she told me to, stand down and da. And
Mm-hmm.
they're heartbroken,
Yeah.
expressing anger and frustration and rage because now it's a domestic violence homicide that I'm
Right.
handling. And the family felt like they had missed opportunities and weren't able to save their loved one. And you don't even want to have that feeling on
You
your
don't want
soul.
to have that feeling. It's a hard feeling to even just keep. But I also want to tell people as well, until that person is ready to leave, there's nothing you can do but be there for them and encourage them and let them know I'm here when you're ready. But in the meantime, you still encourage them. You still ask them, do they need help, or what is it that they need? What can I do? Because while you're encouraging them, you have their abuser on the other side tearing them down and making
Mhm.
them feel that they're the only persons that's there for them, that no one else loves them but them. And it becomes a mind game. It becomes mentally draining for the victim. And a lot of times they don't know who to turn to. So as long as you keep that door open for them to come to you whenever they need help, then that you're doing a lot in that as well. And also have I encourage, one of the things I encourage a lot is to have a safe word for that, a victim,
Mm.
between you and that victim. Let them know that if you text me, even if it's an emoji, if you text me a pineapple emoji, something you don't usually use. Is there a pineapple
Mhm.
emoji? I don't know. But if you
I think,
text
yeah,
someone,
there is. I'm pretty sure there is.
if you text someone an emoji that's not commonly used, because you can't call the police for yourself, then they know I need help, or they know I you, or they know something. But make sure you have a safe word or an emoji that you don't usually use. That if you text that person, you all know together that I need help. Call the police or something. But you also have to make sure you're safe as the family and the friend, because a lot of times I've seen people go into that situation. They end up getting hurt and they end up getting murdered. I lost two friends. Their husbands killed them and killed themselves in their own homes. And I had no idea they were being abused. I had no idea. I didn't see any signs. I didn't. What I saw was happiness and love. So a lot of times you don't see it. You have no idea what's going on. So we just try to encourage our families and friends of victims to just try to be there as much as you can as a support.
Yeah, and I know that, and that's a tough one because
Yeah,
I know that sometimes people get frustrated when they're like,
yeah,
man, they keep coming back to me and saying, oh, I really want to leave. This is bad. And then the honeymoon phase, right? So,
yeah.
for those who don't know the cycle of violence, basically
Mm-hmm,
there's an escalation period where things are super tense. Then there's an
mm-hmm,
act of abuse, right?
mm-hmm.
And then there's this honeymoon phase afterwards where the person's like, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you, it'll never happen again,
Exactly.
etc. And the person, just to be clear for folks, your relationship doesn't start off on the first date with abuse, right? Like, because you would not come back for the second date. But
Right.
it over time, you fall in love with an illusion of who you believe the person to be because
Yeah.
they hit all their dirt beforehand, kind of like Chris Rock talking about you
Mhm.
meet the representative the first 3 months of dating. Yeah, kind
Right.
of like that. And then now you end up in a situation where you've fallen in love with someone and now you keep trying to look for that person you fell in love with, but your reality is this abuser. So this is a psychological thing that's going on. And
Yeah.
so your friends see that back and forth and get frustrated and be like, you know what? I'm gonna leave you alone because you're too messy. You in that
Right.
relationship too. But
Yeah.
that works to the favor and to the advantage of the abuser because now you're isolated. And
Yeah.
abusers love to keep you isolated.
Isolation is one of their main tactics. Isolation, control, and that wheel, that cycle of abuse is so real. And people think it's just an illustration that I show them. No, this is real life. It actually happens. And statistics say that victims leave 7 times before they leave for good. And I tell people I left more than 7. I left. It got to the point where I stopped telling people because no one wanted to hear it anymore. Like, girl, you're going back. You must like it. You keep going back. No, I was afraid. And he makes me feel that he's so sorry and he loves me so much he won't ever do it again. And we're back in the honeymoon phase where everything is flowers and dandies and and beautiful roses, and we're going out on dates and he's treating me like a queen. So I feel, and then there's that tension again, you know what I mean? And then there's that active abuse. And then here comes the honeymoon season again because he's apologizing for the abuse. And the apologizing for the abuse was always to take me shopping or to buy me something or take me on vacation. That was always the apology for the abuse. And that cycle lasted for me for 9 long years. And I married him at 19. And I married him out of fear because he threatened me if I didn't marry him, there was going to be more abuse. But then he told me, I love you and I'm never going to do it again. And then a week after we got married, he abused me again. So I was still stuck in that cycle years. I even went to divorce him. I filed for divorce, went to the courthouse. I was so ready to divorce him. He called me. I'm never going to do it again. I love you. Don't divorce me. Don't divorce me. I went back to the court, dropped the divorce. 3 months later, I was back up there filing for divorce again. And that time I stuck with it because I finally realized, okay, you know what? He's not going to change. He's not going to change. I have fallen for his lies for so many years, and it's time for me to find a way out. And that's when I just started to figure out how can I get out. And it wasn't immediate. It still took me about a year or so to leave him alone after a break free after that, because every time I tried to leave, I was getting sucked back again.
Wow. 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 And I mean, sadly, your experience is not unique in terms of,
Right.
the amount of efforts and how hard you have to try in
Mhm.
order to break free of this person. Because again, you think, okay, I broke up with this abusive person. That's it. That's the end of it. No, 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 no. They're used to
No.
that control. They enjoy it. So they're looking for you. They will not leave you alone. They will
Yes.
literally stalk you to come back.
He would
And
tell me, "You'll
so
be back. You'll be back," and I did. He would come to my jobs. He would. That's a whole nother. That's a whole nother show. He would come to
yeah.
my jobs and, just stalk me, literally laying in the grass, watching me interact with people and stalk me, and would tell me how he stalked me, and tell me how far he was following me, and tell me how long he was following me. It was a game to him. I think he really got a kick out of it because him explaining it to me. He was smart. Oh yeah, I saw you over there. I saw you talking to so and so. You didn't see me, but I watched you do this, and I watched you go in the store, and I watched you get gas. And I for the whole day, you don't realize you're being followed. A whole day. I don't care how many jobs I changed. I don't care. He would find me. He had some weird way of finding where I was. I worked at a security booth one time, and I was security guard, and I walked away to do my rounds and come back. There's flowers and roses in my booth. How do you know where I worked? How did you find me? And it happened at several jobs, and to the point it becomes your new normal. You stop running. You stop running because what am I running for? He's going to find me.
Wow. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it definitely brings to light another issue that's really making the rounds now, especially after Roe v. Wade being overturned. And now there's this new wave of people calling for help because they are experiencing what's called like sexual or reproductive coercion, where they're in a relationship with someone who's abusive and that person forces them, for instance, to have unprotected intercourse, or refuses to let them go to the doctor to get checkups or anything like that when it comes to reproductive health, or threatens them and says, listen, you get pregnant, if you try to have an abortion and try and leave me, I'm going to call the police, because now that it's illegal to seek an abortion in certain states, that's
Right.
now a tool, especially in communities of color that already are distrustful of the criminal justice system and of police. Now you're dangling this other threat of, I'm going to have you incarcerated if you dare to leave me and try to abort or take our child away or anything like that. So that's just another reason why I'm personally advocating for people to sign the petition to get abortion access on the ballot in Florida, because for me, it's about protecting victims. It's about protecting assault victims, because again, people don't think that it's a thing, but legally you cannot, you can sexually assault your spouse, right?
Exactly.
Just because you're married or you're in a long-term relationship doesn't mean that, it's all good at any time, right? You still have the right to be able to say no. And so to me, it's another way of protecting victims and giving them an option, because again, it's easier to leave if it's just you, right? I mean, that's just the reality. Why should you be forced to have a child with somebody who's abusing you, who is going to likely be abusive to that child, who's going to emotionally, how is that a life? How are you going to be able to take care of that child? Like, none of that makes sense to me. So folks, I'm going to drop the link in the chat as well as in the comments for those who are, agree with this point of view, for you to sign. Obviously, for those who don't, I'm not pushing it on anybody, but I'm just saying that this to me is one of the main reasons why we've got to keep abortion access legal. And again, people can make their own choices. If they decide to keep the child, that's up to them. If they have the bandwidth, but they shouldn't be forced to have to do it. So,
and I just wanted to touch on that about especially the sexual assault part. And because I had a victim come to me, because she was still in a relationship at the time, and she said, well, he said he's not raping me because we live together. And I tell you, you have absolutely every right to say no, that you can be sexually assaulted in a relationship. He cannot force himself on you. And she would tell me that he's trying to get me pregnant because he thinks if I get pregnant, I won't take care of a baby. And if I do get pregnant, I'm going to stay. So I'm always on the fence with that, because my Christian beliefs are abortions are prohibited. You don't do abortions. But I'm also an advocate for a woman fighting for her rights and what's right for her. And should she be forced to have this baby? Should she be forced to get pregnant because it's not what she wants? But I feel that people don't necessarily give that a thought, because they feel that people can walk out of abusive relationships freely. And I feel that the people who are making these decisions don't necessarily, you're still in a relationship that you don't want to be in, and you haven't left, then you want to be there. So they're not taking it seriously that someone could be sexually assaulted, forced a forced pregnancy, but they may not want their child. They have another mother on welfare, another child being abused, or now she may resent this child because she did not want to have this child in the first place. So that's such a touchy subject for me. I get frustrated at the same time, because I know how it is to have to be forced to do something you don't want to do. I was sexually assaulted a number of times, to the point where I literally would drink myself into a drunken stupor just to get through the rape and the assault of being in their marriage, drink myself to knock myself out to not have to deal with that. And so I understand being sexually assaulted in your relationship because I knew it was coming. I would just prepare myself for it because I knew it was coming. And I don't feel that people should be forced to have to stay in a situation, whatever the situation is that they don't want to be in.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, there's just so many layers because not only do you have the emotional part, you have the financial part. Because again, if a person has financial control over your life, as in you work, but you've got to deposit your paycheck into their account, right? And they give you a little bit, maybe, or you've got to beg them for money just to be able to get clothing or to feed the kids or whatever the case may be. You can't just turn around and leave. Like, you see what the rents are in Miami-Dade County? Like, how you gonna have
everybody have a roommate at this point? Everybody needs a roommate at this point because it's too much.
Seriously.
Too much.
It's too much. It's too much. So anyway, okay. So, such an amazing discussion. But I want you to please let everybody know how they can find you. And if they want to attend or support the December 10th ball, how they can do so, the Survivors Ball. And yeah, give everybody all the information they need to be able to support you, learn more, and find resources.
So you can reach us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at the @ Pain2Purpose76. Our website is Pain2Purpose76.org, where you will find information on our events and also be able to purchase your tickets for our ball. So our ball is coming up, like I mentioned before. Well, this is a Christmas ball. We usually have it in October, but we're having it during Christmas time this year. It's going to be a night of fun and uplifting and encouraging. We have entertainment there, some food, to sit down dinner, formal. So get your beautiful gown and your handsome tuxedos and come and celebrate life with us. We will have Belinda Battle. She's our clinician, and she will be talking about how to move forward from abuse, how to move forward in healing, because we want people to leave there empowered, but also with the tools that they need to move forward. We will have survivors there as well who are been living in domestic violence shelters. We're going to have them there. We want to make sure we encourage them. So, and come support us. That's also our fundraiser for our Teen Summit, which is in February. So right after that, we'll be going into our Teen Summit. So please donate. You could donate on our website. Again, it's Pain2Purpose76.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shanda. Dr. Shanda Roberts, Pain2Purpose. Thank you for all you do for our community, for our survivors. I will be there to support you every step of the way. We met in 2019 at a Survivors Ball. Lord willing, I'll be able to come to this one. If not, I will support, and definitely keep in touch with me with regards to the purse stuffing initiative, because I love that, and I would love to donate some toiletries, money, whatever you need, because this is an issue, as all y'all know, is close to my heart. So thank you for everything that you're doing.
I also want to just thank also our Commissioner Keona McGee for always supporting our events. He's our title sponsor for this event and future Survivor Ball. So I just want to thank him publicly for always supporting us and his team. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Shanda Roberts, thank you so much for joining us on Mondays with Melba. Folks, you've got the information. Tune in next week as we continue to give the updates as we start to wind down 2023. Can you believe it? Like, we in November already. The year is over. But anyway, y'all take good care. Take care of each other, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.